In this video, I will be reviewing a Fumo that is the quintessential main character of the whole project, Reimu Hakeri. Reimu is special since, well, I mean, like I said, she is the main character, meaning she's the character that's been around the longest, and is one of the first characters to be officially marketed as a Fumo. Technically, that title goes to Inusaki, but she's more of a proto-Fumo, since when she was released back in 2008, she wasn't marketed as a Fumo, and Inusaki's proportions are actually slightly different from that of a regular 20cm Fumo. Yeah, when Reimu and Marissa got their Fumos in 2009, that's when the Fumo name was coined. So, I guess from a marketing standpoint, Reimu and Marissa get the title of the first Fumos, but feel free to disagree. Since she's the main character, it's no surprise that she's been around the longest, going as far back as Highly Responsive to Prayers and Story of Eastern Wonderland way back in 1997. Although in those days she actually looked very different. She was sporting more traditional looking Japanese clothing, and her hair was actually purple in those days. She's often considered as PC-98 Reimu, and is often depicted as being a younger version of the same character, or in some cases, Kid Reimu. The design we all know today came about when the series was rebooted in 2002 for Embodiment of Scarlet Devil, where she now sports a crop top, a skirt, and these arm sleeves. And since she is the main character, it's no surprise to me that she's gotten many different looks throughout the years, all slightly different from each other. So, because of that, it was actually kind of annoying trying to pin down what specific depiction of the character this Fumo is based on. In some portrayals, her hair is black, sometimes she's a brunette. Sometimes this yellow bow tie is depicted as blue. The pattern on her dress can be different. In some cases, her dress has animal printing on it for some reason. So, there isn't really any specific depiction we can draw from. The closest depiction I was able to pinpoint was her depictions in Mountain of Faith and Unconnected Marketeers, but even in those portraits, her hair is black. So I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that Reimu Fumo, her design is an amalgamation of the different looks she had over the years. So that's something to chew on. Her vacant expression is actually fairly uncommon amongst Fumos from what I've seen. Most of the ones, at least the ones I have in my room, are all smiling. The only ones I have in my room that share the same facial expression are Ran and Satori. So that's something interesting. All in all, this does a good job of portraying Reimu as a character. One thing I neglected to mention last week was, I guess, a softness evaluation. I'm not sure why, but after I recorded the Flanger review, I actually discovered that this is actually a version 1 Fumo, characterized by how soft she is, how her arms are, pointed upwards instead of downwards, and how much of a pain it is trying to get her to sit upright. So, in this case, since this is a version 1 Flandre, this is a version 1.5 Reimu. She's not as soft as Flandre, but Gift has improved with the construction, meaning that she's a lot stiffer, which means she has a much easier time standing up on her own. So, which of these I would prefer? Well, I mean, as a collector, I prefer the 1.5 since they're easier to display, but you might prefer the version 1s purely on how soft they are. Really, whichever one you want to collect if you're an aspiring collector, it's really a double-edged sword which you prefer. You can either have a Fumo that's soft, but hard to display, or a Fumo that's not as soft, but much easier to display. So, yeah, that's something to chew on. And one last thing I would like to mention is actually not as much into relation of Reimu herself, but rather how I think Fumos have actually influenced modern plush design. I got a couple of examples here to show you. When I started collecting Murder Drones and Digital Circus plushies earlier in the year, I actually noticed just how similar they looked in design, mainly with how the bodies are shaped, mainly with the big head on the small body, although not as much with these two right here. But you can even see that the general pose they're in is pretty similar. You can even see that Pomni's arms are sticking upright like a version 1, and Uzi's arms are pointed more downwards like a version 1.5. I thought that was kind of interesting to point out. So, if you have any other cases where Fumos have influenced modern plushie design, let me know, because I'm genuinely interested. And yeah, that's really all I have to say. Pretty good Fumo overall. I hope you came out of this knowing something new, and thank you for watching.